a Miriamil. It seems like that was my line. Actually, I said that when I saw my milk collapsed and foaming every time we had our monthly dinner at my in-laws. I get an upset stomach, and this time, I had a feeling that something would happen, given that my sister-in-law, who is usually present, was absent from the dinner gathering. I took the opportunity to switch my dish with my mother-in-law's when they momentarily diverted their eyes from the dining table. As expected, my mother-in-law collapsed after eating the switched dish. While the ambulance was taking someone away, I took the opportunity to rummage through the kitchen, where usually only my mother-in-law is allowed to go. And to my surprise, I found something. My name is Jessica, and I am 28 years old. I live with my husband, Tom, who is 2 years older than me. My Phil passed away from illness when my husband was young. My Mill raised my husband and his younger stepsister, Sophia, who is 3 years younger than him, all by herself. Perhaps due to such circumstances, my husband has a bit of a mama's boy tendency. Even though I say he's a mama's boy, it's more like he's just a warrior. Still, it seemed that he cared for his mother more deeply than the average man would. On the other hand, my Sil has a straightforward and easygoing personality. You could say she keeps a bit of a distance from my husband and his family. Or to put it another way, she seems to regard them with a somewhat cool or detached gaze. It seems she has no intention of living with my Mill. So when she graduated from high school and started attending a beauty school, she began living on her own. Now, she has successfully become a hairstylist and is busy working hard every day. Nowadays, I also go to the salon where my Sil works, and she cuts my hair for me. She and I get along well, almost like real sisters. Including her, there's a habit that we've established since getting married. It's a monthly dinner at my in-laws' house. When my husband moved out after our wedding, he suggested this to keep my Mill from feeling lonely. I agreed because I was concerned about her being alone. My Sil also makes an effort to attend these dinners despite her busy schedule, which probably means she's concerned about Mel too. The dinners had been a great way to bond with the family and seemed to be a success. However, they would later trigger an unexpected incident. All the meals for the dinner gatherings at my in-laws' house were prepared by my Mill. I also work, so it's difficult to help out every time, but I've offered to assist when the dinners are held on my days off. However, my Mill said, "You can sit down, Jessica. I don't really like other people touching my kitchen. It's not that I dislike you specifically. I don't even want so high in here. This is my special place." She wouldn't let me, my Sil, or even my husband into the kitchen. My husband also said, "My mom has always been like that. You should just leave the cooking to her, Jessica." And my Sil also said, "Jessica, you don't have to worry about helping mom. She's efficient, and having other people around would just be in the way." Haha. So I decided to leave the cooking to my Mill. As my Sil had said, watching my Mill work efficiently from a distance made me realize I wouldn't be much help, which was a bit disappointing. That's just how skilled she is in the kitchen. The dinner gatherings are always quite enjoyable. They start with updates on what's happened over the past month, and sometimes we discuss recent news. The most interesting part might be the stories about my SIL's clients at her beauty salon. While it makes me think that all kinds of people visit her salon, I also worry if it doesn't stress her out. However, Shai's mentally strong and says she doesn't feel much stress. On the contrary, she says that being able to talk at these dinner gatherings actually helps relieve her stress. My Mill also enjoys sharing stories from her workplace or discussing the TV dramas she's currently into. On the way home from each gathering, I often say to my husband, "It's good to see mom enjoying herself again this month." Yes, it's really good to see her looking so well. And today's meal was delicious, too. Jessica, Why don't you consider learning to cook for mom next time? That's an idea. Do you think your mom would be willing to teach me? Well, she might not let you into her kitchen, but she might be okay with teaching you in our own kitchen. It might be worth asking. Good point. If it's in our kitchen, she might agree. Maybe I'll ask her at next month's dinner gathering. We would have such peaceful conversations on the way back home. However, I don't know exactly when it started, but I began to get stomach problems the day after every dinner gathering at my in-laws' house. At first, I thought it was just due to overeating, but as it happened month after month, I started to feel that something was off. Of course, I've been careful not to overeat, and I'm somewhat lactose intolerant, so I avoid consuming such items. Still, I continued to experience stomach issues. I couldn't really talk to my husband about this. It's because I know he holds his mother in very high regard. Despite that, I couldn't recklessly ask him, I get stomach problems after these dinners. What should I do? If I couldn't talk to my husband, there was another person who was easy for me to consult. So, Sophia, what do you think I should do? Or is it just me who gets stomach problems? Yes, Mysel was the easiest person to consult about this issue. I don't have stomach issues, so it might just be you. Jessica, while cutting my hair, she said, today, I had made an appointment at her salon for both a haircut and color. If it's just me, then why do you think that is? Is there something that doesn't sit well with my stomach? I'm not sure. Maybe there's something that only affects you, Jessica, but is fine for the rest of us in the family. I see. So you're saying it's some kind of family tolerance. Then I need to identify that ingredient or dish. Hey, Jessica, are you sure it's not just because you're overeating? No, that's not it. I initially suspected overeating, so I've been controlling my portion sizes ever since. I see. Then you should definitely look into the ingredients or dishes. Yeah, you're right. Got it. Thanks. No problem. I don't think my advice was all that great, but if you're satisfied, then that's good enough for me. Yes, it's plenty helpful. So I decided to find foods that didn't agree with me during the meal gatherings at my in-laws' house. However, it wasn't easy to find them, and I ended up with an upset stomach after each meal gathering. A year has passed since I got married, and we've had about 12 of these gatherings. It became the norm for me to have an upset stomach after them. I tried avoiding suspicious ingredients, but it didn't really help. Nowadays, I've become so paranoid that I think something is being added to my food. The 13th meal gathering was looming, scheduled for the next day. Mysel was busy and couldn't attend, so it would be just my husband, my mother-in-law, and me. I felt a bit uneasy about it. However, my meal seemed different, more high-spirited than usual. Today, the beef was very cheap, so I made a 100% beef hamburger. Tom loves hamburgers, you know. I've also prepared side dishes that Jessica likes. What do you think? It's a shame that Sophia couldn't come today. She's missing out on such a lucky day. She seemed to be quite excited on her own. I felt uneasy looking at the dish placed in front of me, my sixth sense telling me not to eat it. I usually wouldn't think like this. But what if something really happened? Confused about what to do, I took a moment when everyone was engrossed in the TV to switch my plate with my meals. Though I felt guilty, I was determined to trust my gut feeling. The gathering commenced, and everyone was catching up in a relaxed atmosphere. However, I was filled with guilt for switching the plates and struggled to eat. I nibbled on the hamburger and sipped on the corn soup, which I couldn't switch. What if this was also tainted? Despite my worries, I felt like I had to eat something, or else I'd be suspected. After a while, I suddenly felt short of breath and collapsed. Thud! I fell off my chair. My mother-in-law then looked at me and burst into laughter. Looks like the poison is finally taking effect. Huh? LOL. What do you mean? Poison? But the feeling of suffocation went away quickly. Somehow, I managed to check the dining table and noticed that most of my meal's hamburger was gone. Then, a few seconds later, my meal foamed at the mouth and collapsed. It looks like that should have been my line, Amiria. After saying that, I instructed my husband to arrange for an ambulance. My meal was quickly taken to the hospital. The person who accompanied her in the ambulance was my husband, who knew nothing of the situation. For my husband, who didn't even know about the upset stomach after the meal, it was all just a panic. Nevertheless, we managed to get her into the ambulance and sent her off to the hospital. While the hospital was being decided and she was being transported, I entered the suspicious kitchen that only my meal could access. There must be some evidence somewhere. Thinking so, I started opening the neatly organized kitchen cabinets one by one. And then when I opened the last cabinet under the sink, I found pesticide tucked away in the back. Pesticide in a place like this, and next to it, I found a laxative labeled super strong. So this is why I had stomach issues. I finally understand the reason for my stomach troubles over the past 6 months. But why on earth would my mill do something like this? She and I were supposed to be on good terms. I didn't think there were any issues. And yet, while I was contemplating all this, the intercom rang. When I answered it, it was my Sil standing there. I immediately let her into the house and informed her that our mill had collapsed and been taken to the hospital. I also showed her the items that I suspected caused her to collapse. Mom, she put this in the food. Yes. My sixth sense told me not to eat today's meal. I felt bad about it, but I swapped my dish with hers. And sure enough, she ended up collapsing and being taken away. I see, she did that. Also, it seems that this was the cause of my stomach troubles for the past few months. What I showed her was the laxative. Super strong. There was no need to specifically choose something like this. What on earth was Mom trying to do? We could only tilt our heads in confusion. At that moment, we received a call from my husband, who had accompanied my mill. It was news that a hospital had been decided upon. My Sil and I headed to the hospital, taking the pesticide and laxative as evidence. Upon arriving at the hospital, my mill was still undergoing treatment. It seemed she hadn't woken up yet, possibly due to a significant amount of pesticide. Nevertheless, the medical staff were diligently administering treatment. My mill didn't wake up that day, but finally woke up the next day. Where am I? My husband, holding my mill's hand as she regained consciousness, answered, "You're in the hospital. Mom, you collapsed after eating food containing pesticide. Do you remember?" Upon hearing those words, my mill thought for a few seconds. Why did I collapse? I put pesticide in Jessica's food. Oh, she easily admitted to her own wrongdoing. While I was thinking that, my husband must have also found it strange. Mom, what do you mean by that? Why did you have to put pesticide in Jessica's food? It seemed that my mill finally realized here that she had let something slip. Well, pesticide? What's that? Did I really say something like that? She tried to laugh it off, but there was no way she could do that anymore. After all, both pesticides and laxatives had actually been found in the kitchen of her in-law's home. My Sil approached, holding the evidence. Mom, this is the evidence. It was found under the sink in the kitchen. There's no way you can talk your way out of this now. Please explain why you did such a thing. My mill hung her head, but after a while, she glared at us and said, "I hate this daughter-in-law of mine. She's not a good match for Tom at all." I started adding laxatives to annoy her, but she didn't show any reaction. So it escalated little by little. My Sil asked, "Yes, I thought it wasn't affecting her, so I increased the amount of laxative. Yet she showed up to dinner parties as if nothing was wrong. I had had enough. That's why this time I added pesticide, hoping she'd be gone for good. So you were trying to take Sophia's life? That's what I've been saying. Tom doesn't need a wife like this. My Mills screamed in exasperation. At that point, my husband spoke up. An old girlfriend of mine used to say the same thing. She would get a stomachache whenever she had a meal with you, Mom. I didn't believe her at all, and actually thought she was being rude. But it turns out I was wrong, Mom. You've been doing this for a long time, haven't you? I never expected to hear such a truth from my husband. Confronted by her son, my Mill seemed flustered. But it can't be helped. I have to get rid of the bad bugs that come close to Tom. Please understand, Takafumi. Everything I did for you. I've done nothing wrong. Even at this point, she's claiming that she did it all for her son. There was no way we could believe that. Didn't she just say that she simply disliked me? Even my husband seemed to find it hard to trust her excuses any longer. At that moment, my Sil spoke up. Sis, are we going to report this incident to the police? It's basically attempted murder, isn't it? My Mill looked shocked. Wait, Sophia, are you really going to turn your own mother into the police? Well, if Jessica had eaten the food without knowing anything and collapsed, would you have intended to help her, Mom? You wouldn't have, right? You did say you wished she would disappear. That makes you an attempted murderer, Mom. It just so happens that you didn't succeed this time. I think we should definitely report it to the police. My Sil spoke coldly. Sophia, isn't that a bit too much? In reality, Mom is the one who suffered here. There's no need to involve the police. Sess, what do you think, Jessica? My Sil turned to me to ask my opinion. As for me, if a Miriam email is truly repentant, then I guess that's enough for me. But I don't want to attend another dinner party ever again, and I'd rather not see her face for a while. I think that should be enough. If Jessica says so, then I won't say anything more. My Sil seemed satisfied when I said I wouldn't report the incident to the police. However, it was clear that this could not go unpunished. What happened afterward? My husband, who had cared deeply for his mother, said we would no longer hold any family meals together. We also decided to keep a certain distance from my Mill. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to interact with her at all. Now only he visit her if absolutely necessary, and even that would be minimized. My Sil would also hardly have any contact with our Mill, since they didn't see each other much to begin with, unless there was a family meal. This seemed somewhat inevitable. My mother-in-law essentially shot herself in the foot. According to my husband, who occasionally visits her, she has aged considerably. I heard that her hair has turned significantly grayer, and her smiles have become less frequent. That being said, we can't go back to how things were before. My Mill needs to genuinely reflect on her actions. As for us, although the monthly family meals with my in-laws have come to an end, my Sil and I still meet for a meal once a month. I would like to continue having a good relationship with her, so we plan to continue these meals. Additionally, now that the stress of meals with my Mill is gone, we've happily discovered that I am pregnant. We don't yet know the gender, but we are thrilled regardless. My Sil is also very pleased for us and has cheerfully said, I'll take care of cutting the baby's hair and making it cute. As we experience the joy of the new life that's coming, we hope to spend our future days in peace and tranquility.